Hello and welcome back to WABAN, the movie and TV show podcast where an expert on the subject discusses things with the average viewer. I'm your host, Nim, and I am joined here by, this time it's actually, relevant. I've introduced you as this before, but the man with no name, because,
Yes.
this movie. Some call him Blondie, but, it doesn't have a name.
Do you know what his other nicknames were in the other two movies?
I don't know. I'm assuming he did because I think I looked it up once and I think I saw that he had other nicknames in the other two movies, but I don't know. I kind of want to watch the other ones. The other two aren't nearly as long as this one. I've looked at it. Like the first one is like less than 2 hours. This movie is literally 3 hours though, so it's like it's yeah. So we watched, if you couldn't tell, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So, classic Western. I mean, probably one of the most referenced Westerns ever, one of the most just famous Westerns ever, A lot of Western tropes probably came from this movie.
What, my terrible naming schemes, my terrible remembrance of names. The prison movie we watched,
Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption is to prison movies what this is to Westerns.
Right. Except Westerns is probably a way more prominent, famous genre. Especially back in when this came out.
I guess they kind of fell out for quite a while now.
Westerns are definitely not as big as they were then, but back in the day, Western was like back then to like what superhero movies are now.
Oh yeah,
like they were just the big thing. And yeah, so this is the first time either of us have seen this movie. Overall thoughts?
Very little dialogue, weirdly, but it was really good. Like, I don't know. I can't think of a lot of details that, really stand out besides, a few main ones.
Yeah.
But overall, it just is really well done.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's very, very slow paced, which is probably largely why it ends up being 3 hours long. Because when you look at like the actual details of what happens in the plot, you could definitely condense it. You may condense it more, and like you think, oh, why is it 3 hours long? Well, it's because it has very slow pace. They really get you into each scene. Each scene really takes its time to like get you into it. And that's kind of,
while you're saying that, I keep thinking of like when they're about to blow up the bridge, and like they show like every step of that, like them going all the way down the hill, them swimming across, and everything.
Yeah,
it's like there's anything out.
Yeah, like I think a lot of movies, and I feel like that was definitely a more prominent thing that people did in movies back then. I mean, this is in the '60s, so it's been it's a really old movie. So I feel like it may have been a more prominent thing back then, like just kind of things being a little bit more slow paced. Whereas like nowadays, when you watch a movie, there's a lot more like jump cuts ahead, like, oh, we're gonna cut ahead to when they already completed doing this, or like,
adapt to our now abysmal attention span.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it is interesting to see that, and I think there were some scenes in the movie where I felt like it kind of was dragging a little too much, and I was like, I don't know. But then there's a lot of it, though, it was really good at sort of just slowly building the tension. Like the opening scene of the movie is just two guys come in from one side, one guy comes in from one side, they slowly walk towards each other in this like small abandoned town.
And the entire time I'm just thinking, are they the good, the bad, and the ugly? Are they about to have a shootout like immediately without any like background or nothing.
Right. It raises a lot of questions. And then you see the three of them like get closer and you realize, oh, they're kind of working together, and then they jump in, and then next thing you know, all three of them get shot.
And the ugly jumps out the window.
Yes. It's like a slow build up for a quick burst of action, kind of is the thing. And then the introduction to one of our main characters, which I guess that's so essentially the story is there's three people, three main characters: the good, the bad, and the ugly. And each one has the same goal of getting this, like, $200,000 that was buried. Which, I mean, think about how much that's worth back then. Back in Civil War times.
Like even now, it's a lot, but like back then, it's oh god.
Yeah, exactly. Because this movie takes place like in middle of the Civil War, so it's like and each one sort of has different pieces of the information. One thing I found interesting was how long it took for the main plot to really get going. So
right
from the beginning, Angel Eyes is always looking for that goal, right? Like he's looking for the one guy, like Bill Carson or whatever. He's looking for that guy for a while. But with the other two characters, they don't even know about it until a certain point where, like, Tuco finds, Bill Carson dying, and he tells him the information. And I want to say that point was like almost an hour in.
I mean, yeah, at least 30 minutes.
Because like a lot, definitely at least 30 minutes, because a lot happens between there. Because there's so Blondie, the Clint Eastwood's character, the nickname that the ugly, whose name is Tuco, gives him. He leaves him. They have their whole like scheme together where he turns him in, collects the money, and then saves him, and then gives him they split the money, and then he's worth more then again, and then so they have their whole scheme. He decides to leave him because he's like, you're not going to be worth more than that, than $3,000.
I really liked the exchange before this though, where he's just like, or Tuco, the ugly, is like saying, I'm the one taking the risks, so I want more than half. And Blondie, the good, is just
kind of like,
if I get less than half, then it might affect my aim.
Yeah,
like just having this little like, exchange of
might let you actually die. Yeah, it is.
It seems like he like actually missed a little bit, and the rope like held on in that last, like, what do you want to call it?
The last time they did it, we saw them doing it, and I got the sense that he did that on purpose, almost just to scare him a little bit. But maybe. But yeah. Anyway, so he leaves him, and then
stranded 70 miles away from town.
He vows for revenge. He's like, I'll get you. Which, like, sure. Eventually he gets revenge. First he tries to get these three guys to help him, who all die.
They're spurs.
Because of how much of a quick draw he is. Which that's one thing I really like about this movie, which I think makes it interesting, is like all three of the main characters are really, really good at shooting, are really good quick drawing and aiming, which makes the final scene, that final moment between the three of them, like that much more interesting to watch, because you've seen throughout the movie that all three of them are like basically equals when it comes to like shooting and drawing.
Like Tuco, like when he gets out of the desert and he goes to the gun shop, and he like is very meticulous about even what parts the gun that he wants.
Well, because
instead of out in the back,
instead of picking an individual gun, he just sits there and goes, let's see. Oh, I like the barrel of this gun. I'll use the barrel of this gun and combine it with the
Cheating
whatever.
gun terms.
Yeah, some of them. Combine it with the what's the I'm trying to think of the thing that you
The
the
chamber.
revolver, the chamber. Yeah.
That could be
Oh my
one. The
gosh.
stock.
Yeah. The other
I don't
one.
know. I played
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption.
See, I know these things just from like I should know these things from like growing up with a in a family that likes guns. So, but whatever.
Uh,
Anyways, so yeah, he just gets like different parts from each gun to like put it together, and he's like sitting there like spinning the chamber, like listening to the exact like clicking noises, and he's like, "Yep, yep, that sounds right." So you kind of are like, "Okay, yeah, this guy knows guns really well."
but then, like in the back shooting range, you like fire 6 times, and the first 3 like turn like the targets to the side, and then the
Yeah,
next 3 like shoot through them and break them. But I do love like the last one stayed there, and the shopkeep's just like, well, you can't hit them all. Before he does, it jumps on like the rickety wooden
it knocks
boards.
over.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so he goes to try to get his revenge, which it's interesting because he has 2 attempts at getting his revenge. One not
Mhm.
successful, one successful, right? So like the first time
Yeah.
he goes up to him, he gets his 3 friends to help. They die. He comes in and he's like, haha. And he does the whole thing where he makes him stand up on a chair, put his head in a noose.
You know, it says I'm gonna shoot the legs out. Yeah.
Right. And then just, you know, they just happen to get perfect timing with this cannonball, just because they're in a town where cannonballs are being fired at it because they're in the middle of the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Which I just found that hilarious. I'm like, dude, like if it weren't for that cannonball, he probably would have died there, like actually died there.
Yep.
I was like, come on, Clint Eastwood, you're supposed to be the badass character. Let's go, come on. Um, but yeah, so the cannonball comes in and he escapes, whatever. Which was interesting because then in the his next attempt, he actually like, is able to capture him and he drags him through the desert and whatever. And that part actually ends up becoming
Right.
important to the plot because that's where they end up finding Bill Carson, which sets off sort of the main plot. But like, one thing I always thought was when I was watching is like that first attempt was kind of fun, but like in the grand scheme of the plot, it wasn't really important. You know what I mean? Like he could
Yeah. Yeah.
they could have gone from him getting the gun to the scene of him like showing up behind Blondie, pointing it at his head, like "haha, I caught you," like, or like I guess to the scene where he was tracking him down, because then there was like the scene where he was going to his campfires, like testing his cigars to see how fresh they were.
Mm-hmm. That was a really neat scene because
I
it
really
was
liked that.
just,
Yeah,
I don't know, because like he first like takes the first cigar that he finds and it like doesn't puff anything out, and then the next one does. It's like, oh, he's
and
getting
he's like,
closer. You know, these are fresh now. They're still lit.
yeah, yeah, which is cool because it's like the character that character seems like he's kind of like an idiot, like in
Mm-hmm.
just the way he carries himself and the way he talks. Like he's like very talkative. He just like talks too much and he's kind of obnoxious. But it's like scenes like that where you start to realize, oh no, this guy actually does have like intelligence. He actually is like good at like a good at being a criminal, and
Yeah,
knows what he's
yeah.
doing.
It's just specialized in a certain area.
Right, right. Um, but yeah. So like if they had just transitioned from the scene where he finds the gun, gets the gun, to the scene of him tracking him, and just
Mm-hmm.
cut the whole first attempt out, it really wouldn't change anything for the story. Um, Although it does
Yeah.
kind of create an interesting thing for the end, where
Oh,
he kind
yeah.
of
That
where
kind of
Blondie
starts
tries
that
to
setup.
get back at him by doing the same thing, making him put his head in a noose, making it seem like he's gonna leave him there to like he's gonna kill him.
Yeah, I I do want to go back to you saying how it establishes like throughout the movie that each one is like very good at shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Because like there's, I don't know, one of the first scenes, the first scene with the bad with Archie, or
Mm-hmm.
Angel Eye. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Angel Eye. That dude, the guy like goes to shoot him, like while he's sitting at the table with that is like that once again an extremely slow build up where he's just standing in the doorway doing nothing until he finally goes down to have dinner with him, but like really awkwardly.
And then they have their conversation.
hmm And the guy gives him money and goes to shoot him like really quick, but he shoots him like through the table, I think,
Oh yeah, yeah, probably.
which like you know, is like a testament to his quick draw abilities. And then there's Tuco the Ugly with At the Shop. And then the good Blondie with his first moment of saving Tuco on the noose,
Yeah,
where he shoots the noose, shoots the guy that's going to hit the horse, and just shoots the hats off of like 5 different people, just
yeah,
all in quick succession. So, like, even like the first scenes with all these guys still like show how good they are at shooting, and then it
yeah,
just builds up throughout the movie.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's just a really important thing to establish because again, it makes that final scene, that final big scene, just that much more intense
hmm
because it's kind of like this idea of like there's no way to tell like who could win the fight because you're like they're all kind of equally skilled is kind of the thing the thought you have. um but yeah, so anyways, so he gets him the one time and then he does the whole thing where he drags him through the desert, which it was just just like really cruel.
Yeah, it was very sadistic. And he's
Yeah,
like constantly taunting him with water, and he like brings that like little tiny parasol with him.
yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because like so Clint Eastwood is the good, right?
hmm
But when you really look at it, like he's not really good. He's just not as bad as the other two. He's just not as bad of a person as the other two. Like
hmm The bad does anything for money. The ugly is just, I don't know, does anything for revenge, I guess.
slash
And
money.
yeah, yeah. And the good is like, yeah, he's after the money, but he stops along the way and helps a few people.
Yeah,
Because
like
like there
he.
was that time when he like, gave the dying soldier a puff of his cigar and like his coat for a little bit. He shows
Yeah,
compassion every once in a while.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's like he's still kind of. I mean, he's still an outlaw who commits crimes for money and like does stuff, but like he's not. Like you think about it, like whenever he's like even early on, whenever he saved Tuco from the noose and he shot the people's hats off, like he could have
hmm
shot them in the head.
Oh
He
yeah,
could have,
definitely.
he could have
It
taken
would
them
have been
out
a
right
lot
there,
easier.
but he wasn't going to do that. They weren't bad people. They were, he was able to get away with it without killing them. So why,
hmm
even in the end, he could have let Tuco die, but he doesn't. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
um,
They do very much give him like he's not a hero. He's very much an anti-hero because
yeah,
like he does kill people, but usually not when unnecessary.
yeah. You
And
definitely root for him more than the other two because the other two are like just more like bad people, than him.
hmm
Um, so yeah. Um, I'm trying to remember like what else. Yeah. So they sort of start it's interesting. So there he's about to Tuco's about to let him die, or actually he's about to shoot him. That's right. He's about to shoot him, which and then he sees this wagon pulling up, which I don't know why he didn't just shoot him and then go deal with the wagon pulling up, like because
hmm
I'm like you're leaving him alone with all your stuff sitting there. Like I feel like he could do something, but whatever. Tuco goes up, stops the wagon. He finds a guy barely alive, and he's like, he's like, give me some water. I'll give you. And he gives him information about gold or
Hmm.
is it $200,000?
Yeah, 200,000.
$200,000 buried at a cemetery. Gives him the name of the cemetery. Isn't able to say the name of the grave yet. He goes to get him water. He comes back. The guy dies as Blondie had drug himself over to the guy. And he's like, he told him the name of the
On the grave,
grave.
yeah.
So here is our setup for the rest of the story. Tuco knows the name of the graveyard. Blondie knows the name of the specific grave.
Mm-hmm.
So
Together they
can't
get the money.
Right, exactly. And neither one wants to give up their piece of the information because then the other one would be able to get the money without needing the help of the other. So they have to kind of work together. Which is, I kind of like that setup where it's like neither one trusts each other, but like they have to work together. Like there's the only way they can get it is if they work together because they know like the other one's not going to, give up their information. I think that's an interesting setup.
Yeah. And then there's the wrench that gets thrown in with the bad, has been searching for this money already. And Tuco disguises himself as Bill Carson.
The guy who knows the information. Yeah. So, well, and then before we get to that, though, there was the interesting scene where they go to the place where he has Blondie get like healed up and everything, and it's like I don't know what you call it.
It's like a church.
It's like a church, but like a church with like meant for like to help.
I think it's just like emergency situation where the church is like became like a bit of a hospital or hospice.
Right, and because it's a church, they tend to soldiers from the north and south. So it's actually interesting when you look at it, like when they go in the hospital, you see like wounded soldiers in northern uniforms and southern uniforms. So it's kind of like this like safe space for anyone, which is, makes sense for like a church kind of to serve that role in like a lot of wars. I'm sure that's kind of how it was back then. So anyways, he's healing up, and strangely enough, Tuco meets his brother there.
Oh, right. It was just kind of this, I don't know, there was kind of a point to it, but kind of not.
Yeah. So, like, I guess the point was to give him, like, some sort of, like, character development, maybe, or, like, character backstory of, like,
he's more than just this guy that sadistically drug another guy through the desert.
Right. He's like, why did you turn to a life of crime? And he's like, well, you left mother I had to deal with our mother when you went to become a priest. And that was all I
where we grew up, if you didn't want to be poor, you either became a priest or a bandit. You chose your path, I chose mine.
Right. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about that scene. Like it like you said, it's one of those things where it's like it's not necessarily needed, but like it's kind of I don't know. It just felt kind of weird. Like I don't know.
It kind of set up another situation for the good to be defined as the good still, because he listened in and heard this, but he didn't say anything when Tuco was talking about how like much his brother liked him. And, was lying to him, and he just was like, well, after a good meal, you can use a cigar, too.
Yeah, he just kind of is nice to him there, which, despite the fact that he has no reason to be nice to him. I mean, I guess at this point, they kind of do, because they have to, like, work together to, because they both have a piece of the information. But, like, other than that, like, he doesn't have to be nice to him, like, but he does anyways. So yeah, they start traveling to work together. But they're still wearing he's still wearing the southern soldier uniform, which I feel like would have been a good idea to take off at this point because, like, you never know who you're going to run into.
Yeah.
I love this scene where it's like in the distance, he's like, do they have blue uniforms or gray uniforms? He's like, gray uniforms.
It's like us.
Soldiers get. He starts yelling out things like, yeah, down with the North. Yeah. He's like, down with, he goes, down with General Grant. Hooray for General, what's his name? Lee. And then they come up and then it turns out their uniforms are gray because they're covered in like dust.
And sand, yeah.
In sand.
And he just starts
slapping it off and you realize that they have blue uniform.
It's like, we messed up.
That scene is just funny. So yeah, they get captured and this is interesting too because it turns out that Angel Eyes is like has found his way to becoming like some sort of military leader in the northern.
Yeah, I don't remember his station,
like
or
army
rank or anything like
right,
that.
but it was like a higher rank.
Mm-hmm.
But
like second in command of the fort or something.
Yeah, which is interesting because I was kind of thinking like when that happened, I was kind of like how did we get there? You know what I mean? That's kind of like my thought. It was
we hadn't seen him in a while. It's like, was he always like this, or did he just do this to try to get information?
But like, what information did he expect to get from doing this? You know what I mean? Like, I guess he was still on his search for Bill Carson at this point because he didn't know if he had. Because remember, the one guy said, "Oh, there's a good chance that he's dead by now." Like, but he didn't know. So I don't know. I was a little confused on that.
Well, there was maybe he did it because it was like the guy did say that it was, you know, if Carson was alive, he would have been captured.
Oh, right.
So it's like, yeah, I'll become this guy in this fort, and so.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Right. So he went to somebody who was on the other side of the war to become. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So he knows this Tuco's there and that Tuco is going under the name of Bill Carson.
The guy that he's searching for.
The guy that he's searching for.
Guy that knows where the money is.
Yeah. So, and he's, you know, and apparently he knows Tuco, too. So like he knew it wasn't him. Which I mean, I don't know. They didn't really, you know, I guess they just kind of, it's one of those things where it's like, you just kind of know, oh, they have a history together, but you don't know what the history is. One of those kind of things. Mm-hmm. But anyways, so he takes him in for some interrogating, which I think was a cool scene because they do it where like he has them play a song so that nobody can hear him getting beat the crap beat out of him.
But
during the song.
Knows anyway.
Right, like all the people like doing the music know, but like it's probably so that like the general of this camp, the guy who's in charge, didn't know because like remember he's told him, he's like, I don't want you torturing any of the prisoners. You know, it's like it's like just because they're prisoners doesn't mean we can't treat them nicely. You know,
earn respect by treating them like people.
Yeah, like, which you know
it's a great idea. I love him. I love the guy.
But then Angel Eyes doesn't care.
He wasn't going to do that.
Well, yeah, because, you know, he's that type of character who's like, once he has a job to do, he doesn't stop until he completes it. Mm-hmm. Like, because remember earlier in the movie when he killed the one guy, because the guy he met at the beginning of the movie was like, I'm going to give you all this money. And he's just like, okay. And he kills the guy and leaves.
Well, yeah,
so like,
but he says like, once I get my money, I always finish the job.
Right. So he had no guy. Right, because the guy who he got the money from was dead at this point, so he had no obligation to complete. Like he could have just taken the money and left the one guy alive, the guy he was working for originally. But he was like, you know, he said, yeah, I always complete a job if I'm paid for it, you know. So he killed the guy. So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, he's determined he's going to finish his mission no matter what.
Yeah.
So if that means beating the shit out of Tuco, then he's going to do it.
that kind of exchange there, like, yeah, that's bad, but there is also like a very, I don't know, a deep ingrained sort of equality to it. Like, yeah, I got money from both of them, so I'm gonna carry out both jobs, even if they are completely opposite of each other.
Even if one of them, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, even if one of them's dead, and so he doesn't. There's no point in finishing
Mm-hmm.
his job anymore,
Yeah,
anyways. But
I got paid. I'm doing the job. That's it.
yep, yep. It maybe that's like partially so he builds up like a reputation of like he always finishes a job, you know.
Mm. Even if you're dead, he'll do it.
Yep.
Like, what?
Uh,
I don't want to hire that guy then. I don't want to die.
it's like it reminds me of like in Avatar, Zuko hires the bounty hunter. He hires Sparky Sparky Boom Man, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
he's
try
like
to call him off.
even it's like he's hired for the job. He's gonna do it, even when he tells him not to anymore. He's still gonna do it.
Yeah.
He can't stop him.
Well, you want to call it off? Well, I already got the money. Oh, you
He's
want to pay
like,
me
I'm
more
not
to
paying
stop the
you.
job?
I'm not paying you anymore. Actually, I'll pay you double to stop. Still does it.
Mm-hmm.
Still won't stop. It's just um. So, anyways, yeah. So he beats Tuco up until he tells him the information, or has him beat up by the big guy.
Yeah, yeah.
So now, Angel Eyes knows the location of the graveyard.
Mm-hmm.
Knows what graveyard it is.
And he waits
So,
for Blondie in that shed.
and instead of doing the same with Blondie, he kind of, which I guess there's sort of, he has this like understanding. He's like, I can tell you're the type of person who wouldn't give up the information, so I'm not even gonna try.
Yeah, and like, understandably, because like, he didn't tell Tuco in the desert or in the church, because, Tuco probably would have either left him or killed him if he
Mm-hmm.
did.
Well, also like he's the type of person who would be like more sneaky about it and maybe lie, or like he literally lies about it to Tuco later in the movie. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's the type of person who would just kind of like make something up, or like maybe play it, try to trick you with it. So he's kind of like, yeah, I'll just. And so he instead is like, how about this? I'll take you with me, and we can work together, and then split it. Which is the same thing he was gonna do with Tuco, but now he's going with Angel Eyes. Um, so they leave. Tuco gets taken away as like a war prisoner by the big guy,
Mm-hmm. To be hanged again.
to be hanged again. Yeah. Um, which doesn't last long because Tuco throws the guy out the train and smashes his head in. So there you go.
There, this is a common trope, right? Being handcuffed to a guy and like not being able to get off, or like
Yeah.
getting it off with like the train rail, like he did.
Oh, yeah, I think so. I think so. I guess.
Because like I remember in Red Dead 2, there's uh there's two characters that were like chained at the wrists, or maybe it was the ankles or something together, that pop up every once in a while. The
Yeah.
Red Dead Redemption series is also Western.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I want to have you play those too.
Okay. Yeah, it would be fun to play eventually.
Mm.
Um, yeah. So, I'm trying to remember where we're at. Oh yeah. So then you have the part where Angel Eyes is like has five other guys join them,
Oh, right. Because
which
Blondie hears one sneaking about and shoots him.
yeah,
And
that's
then,
right. So they were
draws them all
supposed.
out.
Yeah, that's right. Which I love that scene because like he counts them. He goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's like, 6 is the perfect number. And he's like, I thought 3 was the perfect number. And he goes, well, I got 6 bullets.
6 bullets left in my gun.
and it's like, because revolver holds 6 bullets, but he's
Hmm.
like, but it's
Six
like,
shooter.
yeah, but it's like funny because it's like he's just like giving a quick little line that's essentially just a threat to all of them, like,
Yeah,
I got 6 bullets. Just like,
like I am capable of killing all of you.
each one has your names on it, like
Hmm.
that kind of thing. Um,
That line instigated me to like start counting his shots, which I don't know. I think I lost track at some point just because there's a long time between a bunch of them.
yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Um,
I think it came up as something interesting, but I would have to make sure, and I really don't want to.
yeah. I don't know, but
We'll talk about it later.
yeah. So, which this is interesting because they go into that like abandoned town. They're kind of hanging out. Well, it's not an abandoned town. I mean, it is because it's being bombed or being, cannonballs are being shot at it. But they're in a
Hmm.
town where cannonballs are being shot at again. Um, Tuco decides
Yeah.
to just go into a random hotel and start taking a bath because, of course, he does. Because he's just weird like that.
Hmm. Some
Um,
random guy that was never introduced comes to try to kill him because of something that he did to
I
him.
think he's probably been hunting him down because, like, he has a big bounty on his head. That's what I'm
Hmm.
guessing is like
Well, no, but it sounded personal when he was gapping to him, right?
yeah, like he had tried to get him before, but failed. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
uh,
And
but
then
he
I
mentioned
look.
that like he had plenty of time to practice shooting with his left hand, and that like every time he like can't use his right arm, he thinks of him, and like it's motivation to get him. Like it was like really personal.
So
Like
he
he was
maybe.
them. Like
Yeah.
he was
So
the one that
he's.
got rid of his right arm or something.
Yeah. 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 So that's an interesting little backstory.
Yeah,
Um.
no details. It
But
just is there.
do we need details? Eh.
I guess not. The guy dies like right then and there.
Right. Yeah. I think that's another one of those scenes just to show his like gun skills, like his skills,
Hmm.
because he's like the guy. He comes in and he starts talking. He's like, now I finally get to shoot you, and then all of a sudden, bang, shoots him, and he comes out and he's like, he's like, if you want to shoot me, shoot. No talk, don't talk, just shoot. If you want to shoot
Hmm.
somebody, um, which
Yeah,
like
and that he also has his gun in the bath with him, which is definitely not good for the gun.
yeah, I was gonna say I'm
I
surprised
don't.
it even worked, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't think wet gunpowder works very well.
Yeah, I don't like. That's something I was always taught. It's like, okay, guns don't work if they're like underwater, if they're like wet, but
Hmm.
like,
You need a
uh,
spark.
and there's definitely newer guns like nowadays that can work like if you put them underwater and they pull them right out, but like definitely not like guns back then. I
Not a
mean,
revolver.
not like
Not
an
like
older revolver back in the
1800s revolver.
yeah, not a Civil War era revolver. Like, come on, but it's a movie. Unrealistic things can happen in
I
movies, so it's
remember,
fine.
on Critical Role, there was a gunslinger, Percival Ferguson von Musicosti the Third, specifically. I just remember that. I don't know why. But they were fighting a kraken in like the water elemental plane, and he's a gunslinger. He was basically useless because he just made like a wrapping for each of his guns that would allow them to shoot once, and then the wrapping would break and the gun would get wet, and so he was useless after that. It was
Yeah,
funny.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was the one thing I was thinking when I saw that scene. I was like, I sure your gun would shoot from in the bath, but
Mm.
okay.
I mean, maybe he had it in like under the bubbles, but not under the water. But that's a lot of work for like to just hold it there all the time
Yep,
while he's trying to take a bath.
yep, yep. But then after that scene, um, Blondie comes in, and he's like, "Hey, I want you to help me."
Mhm.
Because there's a bunch of guys after me, and with your help, essentially, with your help, I'll be able to take out these
Yeah.
guys easier.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing Blondie's thought process is, okay, I have two people that I can work with because, Angel Eyes has the information and so does Tuco. So
Mhm.
he just has his choice between the two. So he decides to work with Tuco instead.
Yeah, the one that's alone and is easier to deal with and easier to
It's
trick.
right. So they walk through, and they literally are just like walking in middle
Mhm.
of this town, not like taking cover or anything, ready to like take these guys out, and they do. Like, although the two guys probably lost their chance because a cannonball hit
Yeah,
and raised a
but
bunch of
like
dust in the air,
that
but
first guy that like got a shot off on Tuco and just happened to miss before Tuco just like, just quick draws, turns like basically 180, finds him and shoots him.
mhm.
Like, okay, we get it. He's a good shot, but like,
What if
there's
that
limits
guy
to this.
didn't miss?
Yeah, that was
Like,
just like dumb luck, like
yeah,
the
yeah,
cannonball from the hanging scene.
yep. But anyways, so they end up taking out all the guys except for Angel Eyes, and they find a
Hmm.
note left by him that says like, "I'll meet you at the graveyard."
Basically, see you there, idiots. I think it
Yes,
said.
yeah, that's what it said. He goes, yeah, he's like, "See you there." He says because Tuco can't really read very well. He's like, "See you." He's like, he says, "See you there, idiots. It's for you."
Hmm. Because he tries to read it, and then he's like, idiot, idiots. It's for you.
He's like, "It's for you." I love
Just
that.
so rude to the guy.
I mean, he's kind of a dick to
Oh
him.
yeah.
So he's like he's a dick to him, and then as soon as he can get something out of him, he's like super nice to him. He's like,
Hmm.
"Oh yeah, you're my friend." Like when he was trying to save him earlier in the movie. Yeah, you're my friend.
Yeah. The, the bad doesn't have any good sides to him. That's why he's the bad. The ugly, he has some good sides to him. None of them are all that good though, so that's why he's the ugly.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, he's easily the worst looking out of the three, so that's why he's the
Hmm.
ugly. If you did like if you did a poll, he would probably be of like who's like ranking the like best looking to the worst out of the three. He would be at the bottom. So probably, I feel like I don't know. I feel like Clint Eastwood would be at the top. I mean, he has some amazing hair.
Yeah, probably. I
I
always
mean,
have trouble with that kind of stuff is with guys. Like not just because I'm straight, but like I don't know.
yeah, that's true. But
I
I
just
mean,
don't get it a lot of the time.
I feel Clint Eastwood in this movie, and I'm sure a lot of movies, has like really great hair though. Like,
Mm,
have you? It was so weird because like there were certain scenes where I'm like, okay, you've been like traveling in like the wilderness, like in like the West for a while, Wild West. Probably haven't bathed in a while or anything. How does your hair still look this perfectly
yeah.
combed and like great? I don't know. Whereas like Tuco's hair looks all messy and just wild, like you know.
Hmm.
I don't know. Um, but anyways,
They set
so
off. I
and then
guess. I guess the next important thing is the big fort by the bridge, right?
yeah. So they run into a northern fort on one side of a bridge, and there's a southern fort on the other side, and they occasionally have battles. Trying to take the
Twice a day,
yeah twice a day, trying to take that area. Um,
and
eh,
and the captain is just drunk all the time, apparently.
yes, the captain there is just constantly drinking whiskey.
Mm,
Um, won't stop. Because I mean, it's one of those things where you kind of it's like yeah, you're in kind of a hellish situation of like just constant war, which is just horrible. No
yeah,
matter
doing it all
who
the
you
time is
are,
understandable at this point.
yeah, no matter who you are, that's a horrible situation to like live in.
Mm,
And so it makes sense why he just drinks whiskey all the time. And he has this dream about the bridge being blown up because then that area wouldn't be so important to fight over, and they could like move on, kind of.
Mm-hmm. He
Um,
wouldn't be stuck here doing that.
yeah. I love they just go to this scene where they're just like, "Yep, we're gonna blow up the bridge," because they like, well, we have to get to the other side, but there's these, you know, all this fighting and stuff here, so it's gonna be hard
Yeah,
to
and
get
if we
through.
try, even when there's no fighting, we're just
Right.
gonna get shot,
So like, if we blow up the bridge,
and the
then
armies will leave.
they'll leave because there's no reason for them to fight in this area anymore if there's no bridge. So,
So yeah, that works, I guess.
although I found the scene where they're like actually setting up the explosives to like blow up the bridge kind of weird, because I'm like, so they're just doing this completely unnoticed. Like nobody's like, what the hell is happening down there? Who are those
Mm.
guys? What do they have explosives? What? Like nobody's
Well,
like, what's going on?
well, I think they grabbed the stretcher, right? I guess to
Oh,
like make
right,
it
right.
seem like they're paramedics, and they even like pretend to pick up a guy for a
But like
second
why?
before
But
the
like
others
nobody
go by.
goes. Wait, why do they have a box that says explosives on that stretcher?
Yeah,
That's a
nobody
little weird.
notices that.
Like I mean, and I guess it's because everybody's too like preoccupied with what they're doing. Probably they're the other medics are too busy trying to grab people and carry them up, and everybody else is
Hmm.
probably too busy worrying about the fight. So I guess it makes sense because everybody's just too focused on the battle to notice.
Yeah,
But like,
there is definitely a level that that it stretches past the reasonable.
where you're just kind of like, sure.
That is clearly a big box on that stretcher that says explosives. Nobody
Also,
is gonna have a hard time
while
seeing that.
they take a while to set up the explosives, so they're just like everybody's just kind of like sitting there up there, like nobody looked down at the bridge and was like, "What are those two up to? What is going on down there?" Like
Is that a stretcher floating there? Is there a box on it? What does that say? Give me the spyglass, would you?
explosives. They and then they see them like wiring up the explosives, and you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
oh. Um, another thing that I thought was a little weird, and this is just the way it was like timed. So they light it, and the amount of time they have from the time they light it till like it blows up seemed like way too much time to me.
Yeah, the
Like
fuse seemed short,
they
and then
got
they got
pretty
like,
far away from it for
yeah, because they were
how,
like in the middle or like farther than the middle of the river,
and they went,
and they got
yeah.
all the way back.
So I don't know. There's just little things like that where you're just kind of like, all right, this probably stretches the realisticness of it a little bit, but
Hmm.
okay, whatever. It's fine. It's fine.
I do also like that when they took cover, they just stayed there for like an undetermined amount of time that it took both of those
That they
armies
both
to pack up
fell
and
asleep.
leave. Yeah, and like I don't know how long it would take them to pack up the entire fort and leave, but it probably wasn't short.
Yeah. Yep.
They just
Um,
stayed there in that exact position for the entire time.
yep. Oh, and actually, another important thing that happened during the scene where they're wiring up the explosives, was the exchange of the information. Where he's like, "Why don't we
Right.
just tell each other the information?" Because he's like worried that one of them might die. He's like, "Oh, if he dies, I'll never know." So he's like, and he's like, "Why don't you go first?" So
There was such hesitation in that scene too, because it took like it could have been like 5 minutes for all I know for him to actually say it, and the entire time I was thinking, he's not gonna say it. There's no way. Like, why would he? And then he actually does. Like, okay, I was proven wrong.
Tuco actually gives the information, and then Blondie gives the name. But
A
is it the
name.
real name?
It's
A
not the
name.
real name. It's for the most part a lie.
Right. So, but yeah. So, anyways, and then there's the scene. Next is the scene where they stop, and he walks in and finds a soldier like dying, and he
Mm,
gives him his
like as
coat and a few.
Blondie's showing him some compassion, Tuco just.
Tuco just gets on the horse and rides off. He's like, haha. Because, Tuco's like, he gave me the information. Now I can go off on my own. But,
Mm-hmm.
like, it turns out the graveyard is really close by, anyways, to, like, walking distance, anyways. So, like,
Well,
him
yeah,
taking the horse wasn't that big of it. But I guess he didn't notice how close he was.
mhm.
But
Well, as soon as I saw like the blown up, run down church, I was like, oh, this must be the cemetery, right?
yeah,
And then
yeah.
two like got on a horse. They're like, is it actually that far away?
Nope. Well, because Blondie just starts shooting a cannon at him.
Mm-hmm. So casually too, with those cannons like perfectly lined up for where Tuco is.
But
He's
yeah,
just
that's what I'm
standing with
wondering. I'm
his
like, how do you
cigar.
aim a cannon that well? Like, that hit really close to him. How do you aim a cannon that well?
I'm pretty sure you need like a team of people because like it's a whole ordeal to load it right, and like
Yeah.
it's a heavy thing to try to turn on its wheels or like adjust the height even if you can even do that. I'm
Well,
actually sure.
so I guess it
I
was
assume you can.
already, the cannon was already loaded. So,
Yeah,
like, and like ready to go because all he did was light it. Like, he didn't move it or anything. So, like, how did he know it?
yeah.
Like, how did it just out of random luck hit that close to it? But either way,
Blondie's a lucky guy.
I, yeah, yeah, I guess so. But either way, Tuco finds the grave, and then we have a scene of him running around because there's tons and tons of gravestones and like
There you
whatever.
go. Good
Um,
job. I'm
See,
proud
I
of
don't want
you.
to say gravestones because they're not really stones. They're like sticks.
Yeah, some
They're
of them are
like
stones. Some of them are
trees.
actually like, nice carved. Some of them are just rocks. Some of them
Yeah.
are just
So
planks.
this graveyard is pretty much, I think, where a bunch of soldiers were buried, right? So like in the war. So like I think they said it was like Southern soldiers, like Confederate soldiers that were buried there.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, he runs around for a while, just looking for the name, looking for the name, looking for the name. Eventually, he finds it.
Starts digging just with his mitts and
Hands.
a random plank that I found.
Yep. And then Blondie comes up and throws a shovel to him. It'll be easier with this. Has a gun on him.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, who else shows up but Angel Eyes, which, I mean, they should have been expecting because,
Yeah, yeah.
he said, I'll meet you at the grave. So he has a gun out, which I like the sort of thing with this because it's like, so um, Angel Eyes has the upper hand because he already has his gun out, ready to
Oh,
shoot.
yeah.
Whereas Blondie's is on his side, ready to pull out. But so like clearly Angel Eyes has the drop on him because he's the clearly going to be the one who can shoot faster. But then, and this is where you get probably one of the best scenes in the movie, or like the most famous scene in the movie, at least.
Oh, yeah.
So they, find out that that's the wrong grave.
Yeah. Blondie kicks it open. He's just like, there's nothing in it. And Tuco, for like the 15,000th time in the movie, does his like hurried, like pretty much completely wrong, like, cross sign on his like forehead and chest and everything.
Yeah, yeah, it is completely wrong, isn't it? Because like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I think my girlfriend pointed that out when we were watching. Because I, to be honest, I don't really notice these things because I don't
Like
really know
you're a
the right way to do
Christian,
it.
so like
I
I
mean,
know
like
some of the stuff.
I'm Christian, but like that's more of a Catholic thing. Like I
Oh
like
yeah, I guess I was
the
Christian Catholic.
right the like denomination my family's from. Like that's not a thing we do. So,
Mm.
but my girlfriend's Catholic, so like she knew. She was like, he's like doing that wrong. I was like, oh,
Yeah, I forget what order it is, but it's like forehead, chest, and like each side.
well, because it's
But
supposed to
like
be
he
like
does
what,
it
like
so
Father, Son, the
fast.
Holy Spirit. When he
Amen.
does it, he
Yeah.
does like there's supposed to be like three of them, right? But he does like four. Like he just does it wrong.
Well,
I don't know.
I remember doing it like forehead, chest, and then each side, so four. But I don't remember what the specific order is. Maybe it's like forehead, chest, left, then right, or maybe it's right, then left. But he does it like so fast and so frantic that it's just like, hey,
He
and he
just
just looks like
it's like
he's
he's just
drawing in the
tapping it.
air.
He's like, yeah, it's like he's just doing it just for the heck of it. I don't know. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know what he's doing. Um, but yeah. Anyways, so then this is where it gets interesting because he decides he's gonna, I'm gonna write the name on the bottom of this rock. And he puts the rock in the center of this like big circle, and the other two are just kind of standing there, and he's just like, he steps back, everybody's guns are to their side, and then it just creates this slow, subtle scene with like
Mm-hmm.
no dialogue, just everybody looking at each other. You know, Tuco and Angel Eyes start backing up. They back up to the point where everybody's sort of like same distance away from each other. They're all just
All in the
standing there.
outer ring of this circle.
Right. And it creates this, it's the three-way standoff, the classic three-way standoff, that's like a trope in westerns. And I think this is one of the movies that made that like a really famous thing.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least it's one that the most famous version of that, the whole, three-way standoff thing.
I think it's called
So
a Mexican standoff, isn't it?
Mexican standoff. Yeah. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
Unless
I
that's
think
something
so.
more specific. I could look it up.
Yeah. Even though only one of the people in it is Mexican, because Tuco's Mexican. Right. Either way, it's so.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it, yeah.
Yeah. Because I think the whole idea is, and I think I said this earlier, was like the fact that we know as an audience that all three of them are really good shot. They're all
Right.
essentially equal when it comes to like quick drawing and shooting. We've seen.
So here's this. So blah, 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 it's, this whole situation. As a result, all participants need to maintain a strategic tension which remains unsolved until some outside event makes it possible to resolve it. So it's literally just like deadlock.
Yeah. Which I think the thing that really, I forget who shot first. Like who went for their gun first?
I think the bad did.
Because I knew. Because the thing is,
like knew that Tuco's gun wasn't loaded, so he shot the bad, and he would have been fine.
yeah. Because the thing is, Blondie didn't from the beginning was probably thinking in his head that he was going to go for Angel Eyes because he knew that Tuco's gun wasn't loaded because he unloaded it. So he had the advantage from the beginning because the whole point of like this, the Mexican standoff is like, who do I go for first? If I go for this person, that person might go for me, but should I go for this person? Like, who's going for who first, right?
Yeah, they're both equally terrible choices because you still might get shot either way.
Right. Because like while you have your back turned to shoot this person might get you, and it.
But
So
Blondie thought ahead and unloaded the gun.
Yeah. So Tuco's gun was unloaded, but that doesn't ruin the tension of the scene because as an audience member, you don't know that until afterwards. So you're still sitting there like all three of them have equal likelihood of winning this, which I mean, obviously, as an audience member, you're pretty sure, yeah, Clint Eastwood's going to be the winner here. But like,
he's literally called the good.
Yeah,
so,
he's the good.
Is the good guy. And the good guy always wins in movies. It's just kind of a thing.
Right. So there's so much like I really like because like a lot of people like I think the thing people make fun of in this scene, there's like a lot of jokes about this scene and how like it's like, oh, this entire scene is just people standing for 5 minutes, whatever. Because I don't know if it was 5 minutes, but like it goes on for a while of them just kind of standing there. For like and remember earlier I said like this is a slow paced movie, and I think this is one of those scenes that really shows that slow pace of like we're just gonna have them stand here for a couple minutes straight, like but I think it's really effective because it's sort of it builds the tension. But also there's a lot of like little subtle movements, and you see like somebody starts to slowly move their hand towards their gun and everybody else notices, and then they kind of like back off a little bit, and there's like a lot of like little things, like
their eyes darting back and forth between the other two,
like so it's, and then they get the classic close up on everybody's eyes, on everybody's face to see their eyes moving. So I think it's a really effective scene. I think it's just because of, just a lot of the little subtleties, the subtle movements and stuff kind of really build the tension of the scene. Um, so
It's such a long moment, but it really holds you. Because,
yeah, yeah,
I don't know, at some point this whole thing is going to break and you don't know what's going to happen then.
yeah. It's like you're sitting there and you know it's gonna break. You don't know when. You see somebody slowly reaching their hand towards a gun, and you're like, oh, is this when it's gonna happen? And then they back off, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
nope, nope, nope. And then, but yeah. So essentially, it ends. Blondie shoots Angel Eyes, who tries to shoot Blondie, but misses. No, yeah,
I don't think he even got the shot off.
yeah, because I think he goes for the gun. Blondie grabs his first, which I think, and this is an important detail. I think the reason why Blondie was able to be quicker is because Blondie was always planning on going for Angel Eyes,
That is
whereas
certainly a big detail, yeah.
from the beginning, he knew that's who he was going to go for because he knew Tuco's gun was empty.
Mm-hmm.
So Angel Eyes was a little slower than Blondie, slightly slower, because he was debating on which one he was going to go for first because he didn't know.
And then Tuco, the last of the bunch, just sees this and tries to shoot Blondie, but his gun isn't loaded.
Yeah. Yeah, because well, yeah, exactly. Because that's that. I mean, that's the whole thing. If you're watching and you see Blondie go for Angel Eyes and Angel Eyes go for Blondie, and you see like, oh, Blondie just took out Angel Eyes. Obviously, his first thought is going to be, well, I'm going to shoot Blondie because he's the last one left.
Mm-hmm.
But gun wasn't loaded, so yeah, it's one of those things where it's like you realize, okay, he always had the advantage, not necessarily because he's the better shot or the quicker shot, but because he planned ahead of time.
He manipulated the outcome beforehand.
He was right. He was ready for it. And again, he had the advantage on being quicker because he knew which target was he was going for first from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And
So
honestly, even if he didn't write the name on the stone, so they're screwed.
right, yeah. Which that's another thing. It's like he's like, okay, so the name's on this stone. That's another thing that I find interesting about the scene is like he says, "I'm going to write the name on the stone." I always found it strange that like Angel Eyes would be so willing to just be like, I'm going to shoot you and kill you because like what if he didn't? You know what I mean? What if he lied and then you killed him and then now he's gone? But at the same time, what else are you going to do? Because if you don't shoot at him, he's going to shoot at you. So it's just kind of an interesting,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, dynamic there. But
And then finally, he leads Tuco over to the real grave, and he's just like, there's two kinds of people in this world. Those with loaded guns, and the ones who dig.
you dig. That's a good line.
Yeah.
The two kinds of people in this world are those with bullets and those who dig. You dig. Yep. So Tuco digs up the
Is
money.
that where the phrase "you dig" comes from? As like a confirmation?
Like,
Because
what
it
do you
kind
mean?
of sounds like it. You know, like the 80s thing, you dig?
I don't think so. Because that's sort of like, that doesn't really make sense with the context of how the line was used in the movie, I feel like.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
I get what you're saying, but it's such a thing that's like, if you consider that 80s slang, like, phrase, then it can sound like he's giving a confirmation. But, in the context of a Western, it's definitely him being like, telling him to dig.
Right. I don't
I
know.
need to look this up now.
Maybe. Where did the
phrase origin, if I can spell right?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think the like you dig is like saying it's like, do you like something oh, like when you hear a song that you like, you're like, yeah, I dig this, that, and it's like you dig, like, do you dig this?
Oh, I guess.
I think that's kind of what it means.
Well, yeah, I guess it's kind of like a, I don't know, typical meaning. Are you cool with that? Do you understand? So either or.
Yeah, yeah, right, right. I feel like it's unrelated. I don't see a connection
Hmm.
between that and the line in
Um,
the movie.
I guess I'm just grasping at straws here.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's an interesting connection to make, but yeah. So he digs, and then of course Blondie tries to get back at Tuco for some what he did earlier, trying to like hang him there, and does the
Yep.
same to him,
Stands on that rickety grave that
which
in no
is
way should hold his weight.
yeah, which is just makes it like I was like, okay, he's gonna die, he's gonna die.
Yeah,
Which and he starts. I was like, okay, but then I thought about it, and I was like, see, if he was planning on letting him die, then why would he leave the money there? Like,
that's what
because
I
he
was
left
thinking
half of the
too.
money there. So, like, I don't know. It just seemed weird.
It's like it's not like the horse like can't carry that much, right? I mean, like it is gold, so it's heavy, but I don't think it's that heavy.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Uh, so then, but then he leaves off on the horse, and he's yelling at him, Blondie, Blondie, and then a
Constantly
vet
just almost falling too.
thinking he's gonna die, and then like it's funny because like Blondie like rides out of sight, and he's just to like scare him, like he thinks, oh no, he's actually leaving me, he's actually leaving me, and then he pops out, gets his rifle out, shoots the rope, and he's just to like he did all this just to mess with him, like
Yeah.
just to be like, there you go.
I
But
love this final little pop up where like he falls, he hits his head off the gold sack, and my brain is like, is he dead? And it just pops up the ugly, the bad, the good.
yeah, the ugly goes to the bad, but the bad is just dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then the good, and then yeah, then he just like gets up and like yells at him. He's like, ah, what did he yell at him? He's like,
You know what you are? You're just this son of a wah, 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 wah. It's like the music sting just cuts him off so they don't have to curse.
which I don't know why, because if the movie's rated R, I feel like they would be
Yeah,
able
Tuco
to.
showed his butt on camera
Yeah, so I'd be
while
like,
getting out of the bath.
I don't know. Well, earlier in the movie, I'm pretty sure he cursed in Spanish.
I mean, probably. He says
Because
a bunch
I
of stuff
remember
in
he said
Spanish.
something in Spanish to somebody. Maybe he said it. Maybe he said it. Maybe Tuco said it to Blondie. I don't remember, but it was like it ended with the word punto, which I believe is Spanish for bitch. So he might have said son of a bitch in Spanish. I'm
Hmm.
not certain, but I'm guessing that's what it was because I believe that that's the Spanish word for bitch, but I'm not sure.
Hmm. I know
I
a
just
few,
remember
but
hearing that word and I'm like, yeah, I've heard that before. I think that means bitch. Like, he called him a son of a bitch, didn't he? Um,
well,
so
maybe it
technically,
was that last line of his was him saying whatever he said before in English.
just in English instead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I love how he's like, you're a dirty son of a bitch, or, a rotten son of a bitch, whatever he says. And it's like you're mad at him for doing these terrible things to you when you've done terrible things to him too. Like, come on.
Yeah, this
Like,
he definitely could have done worse. He like could have left you to die, and that would have been like completely
yeah.
justified.
And like you earlier in the movie where he was totally ready to kill him, like to kill
Hmm.
Blondie. He was willing to kill, he was going to kill him twice.
I mean, first was killing, and then was like horrid torture.
Yeah. And then killing.
Yeah.
Whereas like Blondie just tortured you, like made you scared you for like a few minutes and then let you go when he could have let you die. Like, come
Hmm.
on. He's way nicer than you. But yeah, and then he rides off and on a horse, which I feel like that's how you got to end a Western movie, somebody riding off on a horse.
Yeah.
sometimes into the sunset, but in this one it wasn't. It was
Across
just
the plains.
across the plains. Yeah. And that's the movie. That's the good, the bad, and the ugly. So yeah, I don't know. I think overall, I think it's yeah, it's really good. I like the sort of slow pace of it to an extent. Like I again, I feel like there were certain scenes where it was a little slow for me, where I was like, okay, the scene itself wasn't interesting enough for the slow pace.
Mm,
But I feel like there were the parts where the slow pace was effective. It was like really effective, and like this, again, like the final scene, the standoff. Um, I think the slow pace was perfect for that, and made it like probably the most famous scene in the whole movie, right? Um,
I
I
mean,
think
yeah.
easily. I mean, I already knew that was kind of the final scene in the movie, like going into it, that it was going to be the three of them standing off.
Yeah. I think I just heard from you that it was like the origin of that sort of standoff.
Yeah, or at
So I
least
expected it, but
I don't know if it was necessarily the origin of it, but it's at least the most famous version of it.
mm.
um,
I do find it weird though, because like I was expecting like, like Shawshank, like back to back, like classic stuff, right? But it kind of wasn't. Like there was that standoff, and there was a bunch of other stuff, like the shootouts and walking through an empty town. But I was completely expecting like this town isn't big enough for the two of us, or like tying someone to train tracks and stuff like that.
yeah, you expecting a lot more Western tropes than
Yeah.
there was. Yeah, yeah. I wasn't really sure what to expect. Like, I didn't realize just how much like Civil War stuff there was in the movie. Like, I
Mhm.
didn't realize it was going to have anything to do with that at all. You know what I mean? But it ended up being an important part. Like, there's a big Civil War battle in one of the scenes. Like I just thought that was interesting. And then like, eh, it was yeah. So I remember throughout the movie I was trying to figure out where they were, like what location they were, because at first I was like, it almost seems like they could be in like Mexico, but like the Mexican part that like it's right next to America. But
Right.
then I realized, no, they're in the States. And I'm like, are they in Texas or are they in like New Mexico? And I kind of
Texas,
realized,
Arizona, Nevada, around there.
yeah. And then I kind of noticed based on cities that they named that they were kind of bouncing between New Mexico and Texas, I think.
Uh,
Because they mentioned like Santa Fe,
mhm.
which is in New Mexico. It's the capital of New Mexico. And then they also mentioned, I think San Antonio, maybe, which is a city in Texas,
Mhm.
which is probably one of the cities that's like closer to like the New Mexico area, closer to the Mexican border. So I think they kind of bounce between the two states, like Texas and New Mexico.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I was just completely because I played Red Dead games, and Red Dead, you're at like that desert area along the border of Mexico, and you go into Mexico for a little bit in the original Red Dead, and so my brain is just like, yeah, it's that area. I don't know where that is, but it's that area. Even when the town's actually like, that's just straight up Armadillo, which is
yeah,
one of the main towns. Well, it's not a main town; it's a small town, but
yeah,
it's in the story of the game. It's a main town.
hmm hmm yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, it's interesting. Which yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things because I knew I was like we're definitely close to Mexico because there's like definitely a lot of like Mexican influence on like some of the styles and like so there's Mexican characters and like
Hmm.
but I was like okay so it's probably like so I determined I was like I'm pretty sure we're in like between like New Mexico and Texas throughout the movie. um, yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if I have much more to say about it. It's definitely a good movie. Um,
Hmm.
Classic. I can see why it's a classic. I don't think I love it as much as some of the other movies we've talked about, but I enjoyed it. Like I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I can
Um,
get that. Yeah. They didn't even
Um,
have like High Noon or anything,
oh yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm a little disappointed.
Oh dang it! I wanted all the Western tropes. Come on. Um, yeah,
It's High Noon.
I mean, it's considered like one of the greatest westerns ever made. I personally have never been hugely into western movies in general.
Mm.
Like I've watched a few other westerns, not many, but I've
I don't
never
think
been
I've
like,
ever watched a Western,
yeah.
just because, like, by the time I was watching movies and, old enough to understand things, they just didn't exist really.
Even now, they westerns aren't really made anymore. They're
Yeah.
just which is interesting, but yeah. Yeah. So that was the good, the bad, and the ugly. Any more final thoughts on it?
I mean, the naming scheme is great. One is definitely good, one is definitely bad, and one is definitely ugly.
Yep, yep. I did kind of like the contrast between Tuco and Blondie working together because it's like Tuco is just never stops talking. He's so obnoxious, and Blondie just kind of sits there and like only talks when it's necessary.
Hmm.
Like he's just very stoic and just kind of like, it's great.
Before we leave, should we mention about the horrible lip syncing throughout most of it?
Oh,
Or
sure. Let's bring that up. So throughout the movie, there's definitely some like dubbed lines, which I'm assuming has a lot to do with the has a lot to do with just audio recording issues because sometimes it can be difficult to record audio on set, record it well, especially back then. It was a lot harder.
right, and
So
especially on the set that they were using, where there's all the sand blowing around.
yeah, yeah. So
Like
that's
that would,
probably why. And also effectively dubbing lines is really hard to do, like to get to look right. Um, especially in a live action thing, like in like animation, I think it's easier to do.
oh yeah, because the animations are simpler. They don't actually
Right, the
have
mouth movements are easier to kind of match things with. Yeah, it's just like
right.
easier to do. But
Well,
like
in
in
real
live
life, they
action,
have like every single detail of forming each syllable.
right. So it's like there were a lot of that. There was a lot of that where it was kind of awkward and like obvious, and you were just kind of like it kind of took you out of the scene a little bit.
Hmm.
But I get that that's probably partially like that's all they were able to do in a lot of times because like they probably just recorded on set audio and a lot of it probably was like not good enough or lost or whatever. They had issues. Who knows? Um, but yeah, but it was still good. I still like. I think the three main characters overall were pretty good and their acting was good and worked. So
Yeah,
it was fine.
those three, like they didn't have a lot of that. Like either
Yeah,
they didn't dub or they just got very good at it because they have a lot of screen time.
yeah, yeah, um, yeah. But yeah. So I don't really have much else to say.
Yeah, good movie.
Good movie. Good movie. I see why it's a classic. Why it's well loved. So yeah. Anyways, I got to do my whole outro thing. Oh, so thanks for listening to WABAN. So next week on WABAN, if you want to listen again next week we are going to start a brand new TV show discussion. So last week we finished talking about BoJack Horseman. So time to start our third TV show. So we're going to talk about Death Note, the anime. So we were debating on how we wanted to split it up because it's a one season. It's only one season and it's 37 episodes.
Hmm.
So we
And I
decided
previously watched it, so I know of a specific part that we need to
right.
stop at for consistency's sake.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll get to that when we do. So for the most part, we're going to watch it 6 episodes at a time in order to do it, we'll have to watch 7 one of the times.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do that at one point later. But so that means next week we are going to be talking about the first 6 episodes of whatever it's called, Death Note.
There you go.
The first 6 episodes of Death Note. That's going to be next week. I've never seen it. I've heard some things about it. I really don't know that much about it. But we'll find out my initial thoughts next week. So I'm really excited for that. So yeah, if you want to, you can listen to that. The week after that, we plan on potentially having a guest. So far, we kind of have it lined up. It's a YouTube channel called Arkin the American. He kind of focuses on like somewhat political things, but also does some stuff. Like he has an episode where he talks about like Star Wars and like the politics of Star Wars. So he does have some like movie, TV show type stuff in there too. So he definitely has opinions on that, but it'll be potentially interesting if we're able to have him on. We talked about it and it was kind of hard like scheduling, so we're not sure if we'll be able to, but if we're able to work a schedule out, we'll be able to have him on. So that would be 2 weeks from now. Anyways, thank you for listening to WABAN. There's multiple places you can listen to it. It is located on my YouTube channel, which is called Nim TV. That's NIM TV on YouTube. You can also listen to it on multiple different audio platforms, that being Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, and Radio Public. It's located on all those platforms, maybe more that I don't know of. I don't know. Anchor just kind of distributes it in a bunch of different places, so maybe there's more that it just hasn't told me about. Anyways, who knows? So yeah, search on any of those audio platforms and you should be able to find the WABAN podcast. Anyways, oh yes, and there's a new episode every single Saturday at noon Eastern Standard Time. So that's when you can expect new episodes of WABAN if you want to keep up every week. Thank you all for listening. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.